everyone. So a few weeks ago, I created some videos about how to create your Bitmoji classrooms in just small steps, as well as how to add those within Microsoft Teams. But lately, I've been seeing a lot of questions about Microsoft Teams and a lot of teachers that are really nervous about using them because of lack of training or it just seems very clunky and confusing. Well, I'm here to kind of say I taught kindergarten last year. I'm actually looping up with my kids in first grade, and I love Teams. I have some experience with Schoology, as well as a little bit of experience with Google Classroom, and I find that Microsoft Teams is actually much easier for the little ones because everything is all in one place. It's not like Google Classroom where you're going different places to find things. And although I love Zoom, I think it's absolutely wonderful for live sessions. Definitely slightly better than Microsoft Teams live sessions, though Microsoft Teams has a lot of good perks as well. Once they're done with their live sessions in Zoom, they have to go other places to find their work or to their apps. They just have to go in all different places. I like that everything, including live sessions, is all in one place. So I thought it'd be very helpful to create some step-by-step videos of how to use Microsoft Teams, as well as some tips and tricks to make it more interactive for your students. The way I set it up is just kind of what's been comfortable for me. I like to think very simplistic when it comes to Microsoft Teams, just because I teach little ones, and I don't want to make things more confusing or cluttered any more than I have to. So if you do teach older kids, some of these tips and tricks and even the setup might work really well for you. But I know if you teach multiple subjects, these videos might help you quite a bit for tips and tricks. But for the setup of your teams, I know it might look a little different just because you have different groups or you might have multiple teams. So I'm going to start from scratch. I highly encourage you to use the app, so the desktop app or the app on a tablet, and I highly encourage the students to do that as well. I found that the online version had a lot more technology difficulties. Anyways, so this is why I teach kindergarten. When you open up Microsoft Teams, then on the left-hand side, you're going to see all of your main, I kind of think of them like as apps. The first one is your activity. This is where when anything happens, whether it's chat or you are added to a team, any activity will happen here. Will show up here. Anything for your students will have an activity. So like when you assign them work, it'll pop up here under their activity as well. Usually a little red dot appears. You have chat. So this is where it's almost like Facebook Messenger, sort of. You can add like a colleague, and you can just chat back and forth like you would in a text message or Facebook Messenger. You have Teams is where your main Teams is. You have assignments. This is where you can go and assign classwork. This is your calendar. This is where you can create your live meetings. So if you want to set up a live meeting in 2 days, you can set that up now, and your students can go in their calendar and join the live meetings there. You also have calls, so you can add your colleagues in here, and you can just either you can call them using either just sound or with video, and you can talk to your colleagues without having to create like a big meeting. And then you have your files here where you can access all of your files from OneDrive. You can add your Google Drive here, which is really cool. I know a lot of people I've seen a lot of people saying that Google products don't really work well in here because it's Microsoft, but I actually found that a lot of Google products actually work better than some of the Microsoft products. So you'll see those in later videos. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to show you how to kind of set up your team. And then I'm going to create smaller videos about different tips and tricks and different features within Teams. But this one is just strictly for creating your classroom team. So I am very blessed that my district creates my team for me and already has my students within my team. It's been It's really nice. But I highly, highly encourage you, whether if you're in that same situation as me, that you create a practice team. I found that while I was teaching in the spring, I had a practice team where I could go in and practice all kinds of things within that team without messing up my classroom. And my students wouldn't be able to see it. And then once I perfected it within my practice team, I could do the activities and those things within my classroom team. So I highly encourage you to have a practice team throughout the year to kind of practice things and test things out prior to doing it with your students. Makes it a lot easier. So this is for you. Also, just in case you don't have to create your classroom, you can create other classrooms. So to get started, you go to Join or Create Team. And if somebody's already created a team and they want to add you, they can send you a code, and you just enter that code right here, and you'll join that team. I'm not doing that right now. I'm actually creating my own team. So I'm going to go to Create Team, and it's going to give you different choices. So others, like if you have an after-school program, like maybe like a reading book club, you could create this and add students for that. Staff is more like for administrators. They could create a team for all their staff. A PLC, so if you want one within your grade level and you want to have a PLC team just for those teammates, those colleagues that you work with, that would be here. A classroom is what we want. That's what we're going to set up for your class. Now you're going to name that. I'm going to name mine Training Class, just for the purposes of these videos. You're going to add a description. I never do, but I'm sure that if you have a lot of teams, this might be very helpful. And then I hit Next. It's going to create your team. And then you can add your students here. I'm not going to for the purposes of this video, but you can add all of your students here within your school. You can look them up through their student IDs, their name, so that'll all pop up here. You can also add teachers. Just as a tip, don't add a teacher if you just want them there for maybe a possible temporary situation. I would only add teachers here if they're going to be like co-owners of your classroom, like your co-teacher, or if you have an interventionist who needs to pop in like frequently, I would add them to this classroom. But for example, I never added my teammates to this, my kindergarten teammates to this classroom, but there were a couple of times where I needed to invite them into a meeting. I just called them into a live meeting. They didn't have to be a part of my class, my team, to join my live session. I just had to invite them. So don't just add them just to add people. That just means there's going to be more ownership and more things that could happen. So I wouldn't. Click skip if you're not adding students right away. So this is going to be your main view. Now, obviously, there's already a couple of tabs at the top. These are tabs. And then there's already a general channel on the side. So for me, it's easiest to imagine Teams as this is my classroom. This main screen within my team is my classroom. This general channel is this main screen. So my general channel is my classroom. This is where the kids, just like in my school, the kids walk into the door, it's their classroom. This is like when they join their team, this is their classroom. So anything that I want to make sure that all of my students have, I add that within this general classroom. If I want to mention students, or if I want to send out just a quick blurb about what's going to happen today, I add that within this general classroom here. We'll talk more about chat later and the tabs here in a minute, but let's go over to channels, because I know that there's a lot of teachers that use channels for subject areas. So they might put a reading channel, a math channel, a science channel. I found that was just too confusing for the little ones. I don't think it's really necessary to have a separate channel for each subject area, because when you're teaching them live, you don't need to teach within a reading channel. You can just create a live within general, and they just know with their schedule that it's reading time. Any kind of reading assignments, it doesn't really matter that it's within a channel. You can just assign it and make sure it's labeled as a reading assignment. Anything in tabs, if you have anything for reading, just make sure that they know it's a reading tab. You don't necessarily, I know that it's very helpful for some teachers. I just think it's just less is more with the little ones. But I did there were times whenever I had live sessions with small groups of students. So I did create channels with small groups. Now, like for example, I wanted these 5 particular students to have access to materials that I didn't want these 5 groups of students to have access to. So I created a channel for these 5 and a channel for these 5. And anything I assigned to this 5 did not show up for these 5. Anytime I wanted to send out a message only to one group, the entire class did not see that message. So I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So what you're going to do, we're going to add channels, and I'll talk about the managing those channels here in a minute. I'm going to go next to my team name to the 3 dots, and I'm going to go to add channel. I'm going to do blue group. And there's 2 options. I'm not going to do this description. There's 2 options. You can do a standard. This means that every single person within your team can see this channel. So if you were doing like reading, math class, you would want to keep it standard so everybody can see it. You also want to click the checkbox so that everybody can see it within their channels. But I like to make it private. So that way only these 5 students that I invite into that channel will have access to that channel. All my students have access to general, but only these 5 in my blue group can access this channel. So I'm going to click next. And then it'll give you the option to add those students. So I could add students A, B, C, D, and E all within this group. Okay, I'm going to skip it because I'm going to create another group. I'm going to add green group. And I'm going to make it private because I only want these 5 to see this group. So private. And I'm going to click next. And I'm going to skip adding the students, but you could add students F, G, H, I, and J into this group. Now, for example, I only have two small groups right now. I had 4 small groups, so I'm going to add that. So I taught 4 small groups, just like I did in my in-person classroom. So there's yellow group, and I'm going to skip. And now I'm going to add a channel for red group. And I'm going to do private, next, and I'm going to skip. So now what it looks like is this general classroom is my main classroom. This is where all my students can access anything I add here. Now, when students A through E are logged in, all they're going to see is general and blue group. They cannot see green, red, and yellow. They're not even going to see it in their channel, so it doesn't clutter up on their end at all. They just see general and blue. So anything in that I only want those 5 students to have access to, or if I only want to talk to those 5 students about a project they're doing, I could chat and let them know about it here without the entire class having to see it. I can add tabs up here for only those students to access. Same with if I have the green group and I only want to send something to them, not the entire class. I would add it to this channel, not my general channel. Okay. Now there is some management that you can do within your channel. So if I go to general and hit the 3 dots, there's some options that pop up. I can go to get link to channel, and that will create a link so that way I can add it to like my website and it'll link to that channel. I've never really used get email address, so I'm not really going to talk about that much. I'm really not sure what that even is. But manage channel, if I click on that, it's going to pop up some settings. I like to keep my general channel chats open so anyone can post messages. But if you have like older students that do a lot of chatting within there and you really don't trust some of the things that they're saying, or you just don't want, because these things automatically post, you don't get to just rifle through them and only add the ones that are appropriate. You would click only owners can post messages. So only anybody you added as an owner can post messages. So owners would be kind of like the teachers. You can change students to owners. And I can show you that in a later video, but I don't really see the purpose of doing that. You can also do anyone can post, and it'll show alerts anytime anybody posts. I wouldn't do that. It would drive you crazy. Or to drive the parents crazy, always seeing these alerts. So anyone can post messages. You can also see the analytics, so like how many times does so-and-so post, the engagement, the replies, the reactions are there. And then you also have channel notifications. So you can turn those on. You can change any of your notifications within here. Same within the private groups. If you click on the three dots, there's a couple other options. General channel is always there. You can't change it. You can't edit it. You can't rename it. It's your classroom. You can't get rid of your classroom. It's always there. But the groups you can change. You can leave that channel. So you could personally leave as a teacher. I wouldn't do that and leave the kids in there. You can delete this channel. So if you decide you don't need that group anymore, or you made a mistake or something happens, you can delete it. You can edit the channel. So you can change the name and the description. You can get email address, and again, I don't know what that is. You can add members. So like now if I wanted to add students, I could add them here. I could add teachers into that group. If, for example, let's say your students are moving, just like you would move them in groups in your classroom. If a student in green group needs to go to blue group now, you can delete them out of the green group, and you can now add them right here into the blue group. So I'd add them here. I can show you delete in a minute. Oops. Then I could go to manage channel. Within manage channel is where you're going to be able to delete a student out of that group. So if there's a group here in blue and I want them to go to green, I would delete them here and then go to green and I would add them there. You can also change the roles to member and owner. So if you want a student to be an owner or another teacher, you can make them owner. If you want them to be a member, you can make them a member. That is all here. Same with the settings, which are a little different. Allow members to create, update, and remove tabs. So I wouldn't allow my students to delete tabs, so I'm not going to do that. Owners can delete all messages. Yes, I want to be able to delete my messages. Give members the option to delete their messages or edit their messages. I wouldn't, because you could have a student post something inappropriately and you didn't see it, but another student did, and then the first student went back and deleted it and you didn't know it, and it's kind of hearsay. So I would make sure they can't delete or edit. You want to be able to see everything they have. You have the option of deleting it, but it kind of make sure that they are held accountable for what they're doing. So they have that. If your mentions, I would keep this checked. I'll show you this later. It's pretty cool within the chat box, how you can mention a student. And then you have fun stuff. So if you want your students to be able to add Giphies and stickers, I think they're really cute. I had a couple of kids last year in kindergarten that used them. So it's up to you. If it gets too clunky for you, you could take them off there. And same analytics, same thing here. And then you also have hide. So if you want those channels to be hidden, like it's just too much for you to look at, you can click hide. There's that. And then you have channel notifications again. So you can change your notifications for each of these groups. You also have here within your team, next to your name, you have other options here as well. So you can delete your team completely. You can manage tags, which I didn't really use last year, so I don't really want to tell you anything about it. But same with the link, you can link to your team. You can edit the team. So you can change your class name, you can change your grade level, you can change your subject, you can change the little picture in the left. You can also upload your own, which is really cool. I think I have a Bitmoji one. Let me see, where would it be? Actually, I think it's in my clip art. Here it is. Okay, so I can click on, if you save a Bitmoji into your files, you can upload that and change that to your icon, which is kind of cool, kind of personalizes it. So now my kids will see this when they log into their teams. You can go to leave the team, so only you leave. I wouldn't do that. Add a member. So if later on you want to add students, they get added onto your roster, you want to add them, this is where you would do that. You can add a channel again, and then you can also manage your team here. So you can manage, you'll be able to see all of your students under here and all of your owners within here. You can go to channels. You can add channels. These are ones that you can have show for you. If you have members here, which ones you want to be shown to members. Private channels are a little different. And I believe, yeah, this is just the same three dots as on the side. You have your settings, and there's a lot in here, so you just kind of have to go through. A lot of it's kind of similar things as to what was in the channels, permissions, mentions, kind of same thing. Here's your code. If you want to invite somebody into this team, you generate that code, and all they have to do is type in that code on the Create Team section. Fun stuff. One class notebook. We'll talk about that later. And then tags again. I don't really use those, so I don't really want to talk about that much right now. Analytics. You can see your entire analytics for your team. And then apps. So here are just some apps that I have right now. You can add more apps there. Anytime you want to go back to your main classroom, you just go to General. Now, the other part of my classroom that I like to think about is the tabs. Now, obviously, you have these ones you cannot delete. You cannot delete assignments and grades and class notebook and file. You can't delete those. Same within my private groups, I can't delete files. They're always going to be there. But I can add new. I can add new tabs. I like to think of the tabs as things that are not assignments. These are things that I'm going to have posted all the time. So I like to think of them as like, this is my wall of my classroom. These are the things that I'm going to have up. So I'd post like my word wall, anything that I want the kids to have access to all the time. Those are going to be listed here. If I want them to have access to my Clever portal all the time, I would add Clever up here and they could click on it. And the cool thing about Teams is that it all stays within Teams. I'll show you that in a minute. It's pretty awesome. You can add your website, your class website, which is what I'm going to show you right now. You can add a specific app that you want the kids to have access to all the time up here. I don't really cut my apps up there, but you can. But I'm going to show you my website. So I'm going to go to my website, and I'm going to click the link button to copy my link. I use a Google site. Again, I love using Google products within Microsoft Teams. Sometimes I like using Google products better than Microsoft products in Microsoft Teams, especially my Bitmoji. I prefer to use Google Slides versus PowerPoint. So I'm going to go back to my Teams, and I'm going to click the Add button to add a tab. This one's going to go to my general classroom. All my students are going to be able to see this. So you have access to so many apps. I don't even know a tiny percentage of these apps. These are ones that I've used recently, but you like Bunsy, Poly, all the Microsoft one. I mean, there's so many apps. I use website most, though. So I'm going to click on website, and I'm going to name it our website, and I'm going to click and paste my URL. I'm going to use the shortcut Control-V. And you can post it to your channel. This means it'll alert the students within the chat area that you added this tab. I don't like the clunkiness of all that. This is the one thing I hate about Teams is that I can't delete everything that happens within my Teams and my chat bot. Like I'm very OCD, so it drives me crazy. I've heard that drives other teachers just as crazy. So I don't like to post anything into my chat that I don't really want there. So I'm going to unclick it. But if you want your students to see that you added a new tab, then you would keep that there. You're going to click Save. And now, I see it there, but I'm going to show you this. If I'm in my general, if I go to that tab, Our Website, then my kids are going to be able to have access to my website without being taken out of Teams. This is my favorite thing about having little ones and using Teams is they're in one program. They're not taking them all over the place. They're not going to other internet browsers. You can, I'll show you that, but it's all in one place. If I want them to have this big screen, I just teach my kids how to click the arrows out, and it makes it big screen within my Teams. And my kids can click around and go to everything within my website. I can also minimize it. If I want them to go to a new tab, I can click this little world and it'll go to the website. I don't want to do that because I like my kids to stay within Teams. I don't even like them to know they have that option. That is kind of a perk, especially with the little ones who are not as tech savvy as some of the older students. Let's say, though, that I want my Blue group to also have a tab to a website. So I want them to go to Zearn. So I'm going to go to a website. I'm going to type in Zearn. And I'm going to also show you how to fix this. So if I go https www.zearn.com and I click Save. This is not, like, if you already see that it's not loading, something's not quite right. So you can go ahead and you can edit what you just added. So if I click that arrow, you can remove that link. So if you're done using it, remove it. You can rename it, so change the name of it. You can also change the URL under settings. Now I know Zearn is not a .com, it is a .org. So I'm going to change that and save it. And now Zern will pop up. So my kids can type in their username and password and sign in, and they can play all their Zern games within Teams. They do not have to go anywhere else. It's right here. But that means that my green group does not have access to Zern. My red group and my yellow group do not have access to Zern. The entire class does not have access to Zern. The only group that has access to Zern is my blue group. So that's kind of the perks of having those private channels as well, when you only want certain students to have access to certain things, especially if you have like an activity that's just way beyond another group, like you're trying to differentiate work. This would be a good way to do that, unless it's an assignment. If it's an assignment, you can still differentiate without having to have all these channels. But anyways, those are kind of the main aspects of setting up your classroom. You really don't need to do anything else other than that. All of the like live sessions, the chat, and the game, the interactivity, and all that, those are other things. I'll try to create some more videos about some of those in the next couple of days. So just check back with my YouTube channel for those. I'll try to go over the chat area a little more, as well as live sessions, and then how to create some things within your live sessions to make them more interactive. I'll also try to go over Class Notebook later, as well as assignments in some YouTube videos. But hopefully this one helps you kind of get started and just kind of think about Teams as your classroom. I think that's the hardest part, is just seeing that there's so much and trying to make it minimal for your students, but also add as much as you would in your regular classroom. So if you have any questions, or you want to see anything in particular after the next couple of days, then go ahead and just let me know. Leave me a comment. Let me know. Hopefully this is helpful to you. Like I said, create a practice group. Practice. We all know that some of our trainings that we get are not the best. Some are amazing, some are not the best. And with this little amount of time, I'm really hoping just to have some smaller videos for you to kind of browse at your own convenience. I know this one's a little longer, so I'm hoping to make them a little shorter with just smaller amounts of information at a time. So I hope this helped you get started and get a better mind frame when it comes to Microsoft Teams, especially for those of you that are just a little overwhelmed with everything all at once. I just really want to be able to help. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I hope this helped, and I really hope you have a great year, no matter what the situation is. So check back later. Thanks. Bye.